Well, thank you, Andy, and thank you, everyone, for allowing me the opportunity to visit your chapter. It is truly an honor for me to be involved with the CCIM Institute, and one of the greatest pleasures that I have currently involved at this level is that I get to come to meet you at your chapter, and I get to meet so many people that I don't necessarily have the opportunity to meet at our national meetings. So this is my first time in Oregon, first time in Portland, and I had the opportunity yesterday. Andy and Craig showed me some real estate around here. We went and looked at some wineries and some tasting rooms, and I got all kind of educated on the real estate in Portland area, Willamette Valley. So it is gorgeous here, and I will be back. And with that, I would be remiss if I didn't officially go ahead and say roll tide. You know, Andy coaxed it out of me. You know, I'm really pretty shy about all that. It is nice to have Alabama as my home team, and have been a fan since the day I was born. What you don't realize in the state of Alabama is you must declare on the day you're born, whether you're an Alabama or an Auburn fan. And there is no gray area. You must be one or the other, and it matters not whether you actually go to school at either of those institutions, but you have to be a fan. There's no professional sports anywhere in the state of Alabama, and that's just it. And so you are one for life. And in fact, about this time of year when they play Auburn and they play in the national championships and things like that, they refer to people who have the fortune or misfortune, whatever way you want to look at it, of marrying one of the other species as being a mixed marriage. And so, I mean, that is the truth. But the first thing, I am passionate and dedicated to lifelong learning. And the first thing that I remember learning as a child, my father taught me, was very important. I carry it with me to this day. It has not to do with look both ways before you cross the street, or this is hot, don't touch. It was this very important fact, and that is that Bear Bryant walked on water. And that is truly the first thing I remember learning. So I've been an Alabama fan forever, and I can't shake it. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is Andy asked me to speak about what is a CCIM. And it is very, very personal and very passionate topic for me, because I am very, very invested in CCIM. And first thing I'd like for you to understand, those of you that are not CCIMs, is that you don't have to be a broker to be a CCIM. We have members in all aspects of the commercial real estate industry. We're appraisers, we're lenders, we are asset managers, we're people who are investors who want to know something about the business and don't want to be taken by a developer. You know, they want to understand how you value real estate and how it is you look at investment real estate. I could talk to you for hours about how we were formed and our passion and our dedication to education, but I'm just going to touch on a few of these things while I'm speaking. What I'd like for you to know is that we have a very well thought out, very disciplined process for developing our strategic plan and also our vision statement. So I'd like for you to hear me read our vision statement for CCIM and think about this while I'm speaking. It is to shape the commercial real estate industry, to shape the industry by being the most influential, innovative, and internationally recognized organization. It doesn't say we're going to be the dominant brokers in whatever market. We're going to shape the industry, and that is a big, big vision. And what I learned yesterday riding around looking at real estate in Andy's car is that in order to get to that vision, to pursue that vision, I'm going to use a driving analogy. You know, when you first learned to drive a car, didn't you have to learn to look way out ahead of you and look beyond the hood of your car, see where you were going, rather than being so focused on trying to keep the car between the lines? A Tesla can do that, okay? Some other cars can do that with their lane guidance, whatever system they have in there. But we are working on pursuing that gigantic vision, all of us in this room, and all of us in the CCIM Institute, nationally, the headquarters in Chicago, at every chapter around the United States, and all of the chapters around the world. And we are in many, many, many countries. So whoever it is that wrote that book, Amazon is marketing it to investors in Europe. That's why. There are a lot of people that want to invest in the United States. And we are trying to make sure that they understand that when they come over to this country to invest in real estate in the United States, they need to first look for a CCIM. That's their first order of business. So I want to give just a little bit of history about how we get to where we are right now today, and then spend a little bit more time talking about what we are doing currently. In the last 10 years, 10 years since we had our industry fall off the cliff, at the CCIM Institute, we had a series of things that really disrupted us as well. Right about 2007, our long-term CEO, Susan Groneveld, had to step aside as being our CEO because she had cancer. And so health issues forced her to take a retirement and fight that cancer. And we then hired someone who had been her heir apparent to run the Institute, be the CEO. And he had been working with the CCIM staff for a number of years and being, part of the CCIM family there when the real estate world fell off the cliff. And so we had a lot of tremendous budget cuts that had to be made in those years. We went overnight from about a $20 million budget down to about 9 or 10. And there were some real tough decisions that had to be made at the time. And we asked Jonathan, who our then current CEO, to look at the staff people that were working with him and make the decision who would stay and who would leave. And Jonathan had some real heartache and heartburn with that issue, as you can imagine, and he was not able to, really do the tough love things that he needed to do for our institute. So our search committee that we had at the time went out and they found a hatchet man. And the hatchet man was a retired Navy admiral who ran our institute directly focused on the bottom line. He eviscerated our staff in Chicago, truly. And the morale was horrible, and a lot of the members that were trying to have contact with the institute had difficulty finding people that had been there for a long time and finding somebody that would answer the phone and talk to them. It was a bleak time in our history. So he was there for a whole lot longer than he needed to be, and we were then, his tenure at CEO was followed up by 2 interim CEOs, both of them CCIM designees. A woman who was our first female president, B.K. Allen, and then followed by Walt Clements, who is from St. Louis area originally. So they were interim CEOs, they were caretakers, working with our staff, trying to help and rebuild our morale in our office in Chicago, and they did a great job. But what we really needed was that person in the Tesla to help us look way out beyond where it is we are right now. No longer focus on the bottom line or trying to keep the Institute within the lines in the lane. We need that vision. And so Greg Fine was hired almost a year ago now. He was hired February the 1st of 2018, and he is truly a leader, a visionary, a change agent, and our staff loves him. The leadership, the elected leadership, adore him, and he is taking us in directions that we have aspired to be in since about 2007 and just had lost our footing and lost our way. So we are back on track, and we are doing incredible things in Chicago with the Institute. And so if I could take just a few minutes to hit on a couple of those. We always say that CCIM Institute is a 3-legged stool, and we talk about education being one of those legs, the third one being technology, the second one being technology, and the third one being networking. And what I would change that to say membership, because it's the members, all of us in this room, who are CCIM. We are what make our organization fantastic and make it an organization that we want to be proud of and participate in. But back to our education, we are constantly working on our core courses. How many of you in this room that are designees, has it been more than 2 years since you took a course? Yeah, okay. We have this program called Life with the Pen, and it will allow you to take a refresher on any of those core courses for about $300, you know? And it's a week-long worth of education, refresh you on some of the techniques. If you don't use them every day, you lose them. So there's an opportunity for you to refresh yourself in taking those core courses. What you might think is, well, you know, I took it so long ago, I mean, what possibly could have changed? Well, tax laws have changed for one. You know, our accounting standards, the rules about how all of our clients now will account for their leases on their books starting January 1st of 2019. It is something that is really going to be a tremendous impact on our business. And if you're not familiar with how these new FASB rules are going to impact your clients, I suggest you sit in on a 103 course and hear some of that. We also have the Ward Center courses. The Ward Center is designed to create some courses that are not core courses, that are meant to be topical and relevant, whatever quick thing we need, whatever's going on in the market that we need to educate our members and non-members about. We put these courses, most of them are webinars. So we've got one coming up December the 18th on the opportunity zones. We've got some leading tax experts to talk about that. We've put up courses on the FASB rules, on the new tax law when it was passed a year ago, and even the tax lawyers at the time didn't understand exactly what was written in the new tax code. So we're still learning about that, and we'll have updates as they are warranted. I'm also working, a personal passion of mine because I'm an instructor, is to work on developing some new technology tools for use in our classroom and outside of our classroom for all of our members. All those spreadsheets that we use in the classroom were written by Bob Ward, one of our beloved instructors, and bless his heart, Bob was in his 80s when he developed those spreadsheets for us about 10 or 12 years ago now. And so we're in need of a refresh there, and so we're working on some new technology. Hope to announce that in April in San Antonio when we have our meeting. On the technology side, we've gotten our site to do business back up and fully operational now, and that's what most people think of when they talk about CCIM and technology, is the CCIM site to do business and that supporting information that we buy from folks right down the road here at Esri. But we also have a number of affinity partners and other technology providers that are willing to give you discounts because you are a CCIM. All you have to do is go on our website and look at all the affinity partners. There are technology companies, there's car rental companies, there's FedEx, travel programs that are willing to give you a discount on anything that you want to do in your business and or for your clients. They're there on our website. As far as the networking and the membership, when I first became a CCIM and I knew that we were part of NAR, the National Association of Realtors, I thought, yeah, so what? What does that get for me? And the more involved I get at CCIM, the more I understand about how important that is. NAR is the mothership. They own our designation. They are our tremendous partner in lobbying and legislative issues. They provide the muscle and the voice, like a million-member strong voice. So anything that needs to be dealt with in the legislature, we have them, and they have our back, and they're helping us. And if anybody, all the people talking about 1031 exchanges here earlier in the marketing session, if it hadn't been for NAR, we would not have retained that 1031 exchange mechanism within our tax code. So when you write your check this year and pay your dues, be very happy to send that money to NAR. It's $100 a year to have that sort of legislative support working for you in Washington. So there's that. We are working on a lot of things in terms of brand awareness and marketing to help the chapters. In October in Chicago, we passed a tremendous budget. We're back up around $17 million budget this year for 2019. And outside of that $17 million operating budget, we passed a little over $1 million worth of business plans to be funded out of our reserves, our reserve account. The biggest single one of those is unprecedented in our history. We're spending $968,000 over the next 3 years to invest it in our chapters. We are going to develop the chapter marketing programs, the website templates, the marketing specifically for your market. It'll look like, it'll reflect the national marketing that's being done by our Silver brand people in Chicago for the national organization. But they're going to help you customize it to your own needs, your own event scheduling, your own marketing within your market. They'll look at who your competitors are for membership and for luncheons and whatever, and help you do that, not only the pretty stuff that you send out and marketing flyers, but help you actually do strategic planning within your chapter. So we're hiring a person in Chicago whose job it will be to interface with all of the chapters that we have in the United States to help build this program, and that person will be hitting the ground running in January. So they won't be able to hit all of the chapters all at one time. We're going to, roll it out regionally, I think. Some of the details of that are still being worked out, but I've got a stack of cards here. If you have any questions, I'll give you my card. I encourage you to reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with the right person within the Institute once we have identified who that is to help with the chapter marketing. One other thing, back to this driving analogy, and if we're going to hit, the big vision, we have to be thought of as the thought leader within the commercial real estate industry. We've partnered up with Casey Conway, who is the chief economist for the CCIM Institute, and it just so happens that he's also on staff at the University of Alabama Center for Real Estate, and I had nothing to do with it, I promise you. But Casey is our economist. He comes around, he will come to the chapters and help you do lunch presentations and speak to you about the economy in general and drill down into what's going on in your particular market area. You may have seen some of the articles he's written for us. He's doing some really serious quarterly papers for us now on, he was all out in front of the Amazon RFP. Now the national media is contacting KC for, information about, what happened, in the wake of that decision. He's been out in front of it. He's also writing a real technical definition for what is adaptive reuse. We all use that phrase very commonly, but lenders, underwriters don't understand exactly what it is adaptive reuse is. So if we can identify it, name it, quantify it, this is cutting edge stuff that he's doing for CCIM. So look for his materials as he publishes them. Our CEO, Greg Fine, is reaching out to users of commercial real estate services. He's not just out there trying to come look for new students to sit in our classroom. He's trying to find the users. U-Haul is the most recent one that he talked to that said, hey, we need to make sure that whatever happens, if you're doing site selection, you need to find CCIM to help you with that. So he's going to the source. He's no longer focused on the bottom line of how it is we grow our organization, but looking out farther ahead, the hood of the car, to figure out how it is we are more valuable to our clients and customers. And with that, I'm going to leave you with one other thought that I had today. Watching this morning the funeral service, the day of mourning for our beloved and former President George H.W. Bush, he said that he called on all of us to be 1,000 points of light. And so what I would ask you to be is one of 14,000 points of light within the CCIM organization. And let us shine that light in the world so that everybody knows exactly who CCIM is, because it's all of us in this room. And I'm happy to talk with all of you here today and this afternoon and beyond, and give you my phone number if you want to write it down. This is my personal cell number. Everybody else did this up here. It's 205, Alabama area code, 205-531-0340, and I'm happy to talk to each and every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I just wanted to point out this picture. Look at her blazer, and look at that writing up top. You think that's just a coincidence? I don't know. So I like that car analogy, and I know there's a couple other people in the audience that like cars on the track, and we always say a couple different things about it. One, keep the shiny side up. Two, look where you want to go, not necessarily where you're going. So I really appreciate what you said, Barbara, about looking to the future and making things happen. So without further ado, we are going to venture into the transaction of the year. My experience with this is that it sounds a lot better to have the candidates present their deals. So that's what we're doing today. Each of them are going to give you about a 3 to 5 minute pitch. The winner has been decided, so don't try to sell it. But as far as the transaction, we want to hear what you did. We want to hear how CCIM helped you get the deal done, and have a good time with it. So first off, I'd like to start with Carson Hawley. He is now a CCIM. Congratulations. Carson serves as investment advisor at Sperry Van Ness Embry Realty, specializing in conventional and affordable multifamily. Carson is the third generation of his family to be involved with investment real estate in Portland. Mr. Hawley has strong analytical and marketing skills, which allow him to provide accurate and effective underwriting in order to help his clients make informed decisions. He's a student of national economic trends, consistently tracks national real estate market for a variety of products, enables him to help his clients understand their investments in a regional and sector-based context. Prior to his brokerage career, Carson studied ancient Mediterranean cultures and holds a BA in classical studies with emphasis in ancient history from Pitzer College. So why are you here? I don't know. You didn't learn much, did you?
I live my life like Mr. Bean.
All right. Here you go, Carson.
Thank you. Carson Hawley, new CCIM. I see David got a hold of my resume. So my transaction was long and tortured, and I will try and make this short and sweet. Sold a 30,000 square foot retail center. That was not just a retail center, it also abutted a wetlands. We had a battle with beavers that flooded our parking lot. We had office space in the back, so we had leakage on the leases, on the triple nets. We had 5 different buildings. We had a structural issue in one of the buildings. We assumed a CMBS loan. We had a first-time retail buyer. We had an environmental report where we didn't have anything from the last 12 years, and we had the holy trinity of environmental culprits. We had a gas station. We had a laundry facility, a dry cleaner. We had an oil change facility all in one parcel. So, and we had no environmental policy, even when CMBS had been issued somehow. So we had no environmental site assessment. So we worked through that. We used Jim Brown and his fabulous services here to get us comfortable and deal with that. We went through everything in this process. Closing was a nightmare. Bringing the lender's counsel just under rain was difficult. They kept trying to underwrite the assumption and assignment agreement of the CMBS loan up until we closed. They actually got to the point where they attempted to rewrite the assumption agreement after we had closed. And thankfully, our title officer warned me about this because they had sent 3 different versions across in 3 days. And it was one of those moments where she said, the lender's not giving us the right amount of monies to close the transaction out. We have a $600 deficit coming with a check right now. So as far as being a broker, this is one of the only times in my life I have ever walked into closing and given money to title instead of taking it out. So this was a heck of a transaction. It ended up being a phenomenal transaction for my clients. They bought the property with extremely high leverage. They put 22% down. They picked it up with a 275 basis point spread debt to cap rate. The debt paydown yield is a higher yield than we're getting for market rate cash flows. So it's really hard to mess this deal up for my clients. And without understanding that specific nuance and having the discipline to work through all of those issues, we wouldn't have gotten the deal done. So I'm thankful to CCIM. That was a transaction we presented. I'm glad it's over. Oh, One other topic. I'm sorry to be long. In the middle of this, I had my twin daughters were born. So, Mr. President. Yeah, if you didn't read that, it was the loan assumption from Hades. You'll find it there.
This is a nice audience. Love it. Second candidate, Mary Kay West, Colliers, CCIM. Mary Kay West is a leader in the leasing, acquisition, and disposition of office, mixed-use, and industrial properties in the Portland metro area. She has managed property for large institutional owners, supervised commercial loan administration and market research departments, and worked on new business development, property management takeovers. Mary Kay is licensed associate broker in Oregon, holds a CCIM certified green broker and lead green associate designations. She is a past recipient of this award, 2007, for the brewery block sale. Education, Idaho State, marketing cum laude. Smarter than I am. Not saying a lot, though. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. It's an honor to be up here. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting transactions to hear about. So the transaction that I submitted was the sale of the ESCO campus. And as you can see on the slide, as you can see on the slide, the campus consisted of multiple parcels, about 22 and a half acres. There were also 4 buildings. The ones in navy blue are the ones that ESCO wanted to lease back after the sale closed. The buildings in light gray and yellow, light gray had been demolished and remediated in about a year run up to the transaction. And then the 3 or 4 buildings that are yellow were the ones that were still in existence, but were to be demolished under about a $10 million demo contract. So in terms of the real estate, maybe not all that complex. What was interesting, though, is that ESCO was in the process of being purchased by Weir Group, which is a multinational out of Scotland. They are a publicly traded company, and that purchase drove several things that became challenges for us in this transaction. Number one, there was a hard close date. We absolutely could not close after June 29th, which was when the sale to Weir closed. So we had from the launch, or actually the receival of the assignment to close, so that's getting marketing materials ready, due diligence, et cetera, 43 days. Also a challenge, because Weir was publicly traded, we had to ensure that the process was very, very transparent and the sharing of the information was very, very equitable. So if a potential investor asked a question, if a new report was generated, if a new memorandum came to light, any new piece of progress or information that arose during the process of the transaction had to be posted to the due diligence site, and we had to broadcast out to all of the potential investors to make sure that everyone had exactly the same amount of information so that there was no trailing liability for Weir once they closed on the acquisition of ESCO. The third thing that was a major challenge in the transaction is because of the hard close date, we had to, as much as possible, guarantee 100% certainty of close once we had selected a buyer. Our time frame was so short that there was no way we could afford to pick somebody, start going down the path, and then find something that happened during due diligence and have those folks back out. So what that led to was essentially a completely backwards process. We pushed out the marketing information, and then in order to be able to submit an LOI, so not even to enter into a PSA and go under contract, just to submit an LOI, all the investors had to complete all of the due diligence, approximately 10,000 pages of material in our war room. They had to tour the entire asset with our team. They had to meet with ESCO's land use consultant and their environmental consultant and their attorneys. They had to hire their own land use and environmental folks. They had to, in the process of submitting the LOI, waive all of their due diligence, guarantee that they would put up a multi-million-dollar non-refundable deposit upon acceptance of their LOI. They had to provide comments on the purchase and sale agreement, and they also had to accept what was essentially a non-negotiable lease agreement because ESCO was leasing back 3 of the buildings for up to 36 months. So in about a 3.5 or 4 week marketing period, we basically had to run the entire process of a transaction to ensure that whoever we selected would close. It was an amazing team effort. Part of my team, my partner Chris Johnson, my colleague Scott McLean, and associate Caitlin McGuire. The ESCO folks were incredible to work with. We had to participate, of course, in every single property tour. We had to be in every single meeting or on every single conference call with the land use attorney and the environmental consultant. So certainly a ton of education that occurred during the process of the transaction. And I'm happy to say that we did end up closing on the 28th of June, and we actually exceeded ESCO's expectations for pricing. So even considering the really highly constrained time frame, which certainly impacted the amount of proceeds they could expect, we exceeded it by about 12%. So it was a fantastic transaction to be part of.
Is there any financing involved in that?
No, all cash.
Is that why it was able to happen that short?
Yeah, you had, and to part of your LOI, you had to show proof of funds. So, and pretty much the minimum security deposit that was acceptable was $3 to $4 million, and that had to go non-refundable within 2 business days of submitting your LOI and being accepted.
I have one more question. Did you
Yeah.
already have a handful of people that you wanted to present this to that you knew that could perform like that?
I think one of the reasons that we were able to get the assignment is because we've worked on enough transactions where we knew a lot of the local and regional and national developers. It's a development play. And so, it was very exciting to work on what was essentially the last and largest urban development site in Portland. And you also kind of throw in the little Portland Diamond Project, who had made an offer that was almost 3 times what anyone else made, but they refused to adhere to the time frame, and so they were not in the running. It was interesting, yeah. The buyer was actually a local group. So Warren Rosenfeld with Calbag, Noel Johnson, who was previously with Killian Pacific, Al Solheim, Bob Ames. So it'll be very, very exciting to see what happens with that site in the future. Yes?
Can you share what it traded for and let us know that you made a great fee on this?
I traded for about $33 million. Wow. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Nicely done, thank you. Mr. Ryan Embry, CCIM. Ryan serves as Managing Director for SVN, specializing in the sale of single-tenant, retail, multi-tenant shopping center property throughout the Northwest. Since beginning his commercial real estate career in 2004, Ryan has exceeded $300 million in career sales volume. Ryan served as president of Oregon CCIM, Oregon Southwest Washington CCIM chapter. Ryan has been recognized as the Regional Transaction of the Year winner twice in 2014 and in 2016. Ryan has roots in Oregon dating back to the 50s, 1850s. Yeah, exactly. So I knew his dad. I haven't seen him lately. You get old enough, you start knowing multiple generations of these people, but not back that far. Currently he lives in Beaverton with his wife, Sarah, 3 daughters, Brooke, Grace, and Paige. And he's a beaver. But you know what? His funny thing is he fought real estate for a long time, didn't you? Somebody tried to talk you into it, and you tried to stay out, and you joined the dark side. So tell us what you're doing with the dark side, Ryan.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Again, Ryan Embry, CCIM with SVN here in Portland. This is a transaction that, again, when I did my write-up, the way I describe this transaction is somehow I just attract brain damage deals. Again, I've had a couple of transactions of the years that I've been awarded in the past, and last year had a couple that definitely caused some trauma. I hate to admit, but I was on the other side of that deal that Carson closed for his presentation. Great broker to work with, but it was when I thought about which one to write up, I was going to consider writing up that one. I'm like, I don't think I want to go up against Carson. He had some real big hurdles that he had on his side with that buyer, the loan assumption, and everything else. With this transaction, brief background. So it was an off-market deal. I had a client that I've worked with for a number of years that was interested in increasing their portfolio here in Oregon. I'd closed on 3 different transactions with them so far, and they said we need a bigger presence so we can have more of a full-time staff up there to oversee our assets. So I've always kept my eyes open for opportunities. So in kind of calling through the database that we all do, I reached out to a broker owner of an asset over in Clackamas, Oregon. This broker was David Caldwell. He has been in our market for probably 30 years. I think he's transitioned to spend more time in Idaho at this point. But he and his partner, who was a CPA, had created a fund that bought this back in about 2005. And I talked to David. He said, no, we're not really sellers. We just placed new financing in 2015, and we've got a pretty enormous defeasance cost or yield maintenance cost that just doesn't make any sense. I said, well, what does your number look like? And he kind of threw out just a ballpark. I'd take $14 million for this thing, but somebody else has to pay off my loan. I asked for some details in the loan. He's like, well, we have about $7 million of debt. I'm like, crap, that's a shitty loan to value. It's going to make it kind of tough to make this deal have any sense. But I kept on prodding him, saying, I need a little bit more information. Can you share the rent roll so I can get a little bit smarter? What's the upside? What's the story here? And like most brokers, you're very sensitive to sharing that data. You don't want to get your rent roll out there to have people start picking off tenants or anything else. So I had convinced my client to sign a CA, and he finally released his rent roll. I'm like, all right, can we get some debt information? We know the number, what's the interest rate, what's some other terms. And the loan was with Standard Insurance. He was not going to sell. If somebody just made him an offer, whether it was cash or new financing, it was never going to happen. So he told me flat out, I'm prepared to take this to market with my Standard Insurance lending. We have some windows of time that we can pay it off. So in 2020, we'll probably be sellers. I said, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Presented the asset to a group out of California, and they said, we like this. I think we can make sense of this thing. We made an offer of $12,750,000, which David told us we were idiots for even submitting, but it started the dialogue. What was key is, even though he was not providing us any type of detailed financial information, again, in going through these brain damage transactions, you really understand the nuances of, okay, a landlord tells you everything's triple net. I call BS. Let's get a couple layers deeper into what this really looks like. So we had to make some really big assumptions to even land at that $12,750,000. We convinced David to respond. He responded at $13,500, more and more negotiation, finally land at a contract price or an LOI of $13,125,000. So I'm thinking, sweet, this is awesome. This is not as painful as I expected. Well, that's where the work began. So now we have 27 leases we're going through. There is nuances with the right of first refusal from tenants that we have to fight. He wanted a tight timeline for a lot of his due diligence that was problematic, especially during the holidays. We had in this transaction 6 different addendums that were fighting matters every single time. Like this was, you had hanging on by a thread, and you're like, all right, got past the first one, good, next one, and it was just ongoing. The win kind of when we went through this was we were able to convince Standard Insurance, working through the mortgage brokers at Q10, that we could actually place a second with them in this process. So it's kind of the creative components. So knowing and working with Standard Insurance in the past, I knew that there was some language that we could utilize where they'd want to work with us. This is a great borrower that they want to develop a relationship with. So what I brought to this transaction in terms of those CCIM skills was thinking of things, just not here's the box, think what's inside it, here's the loan, you have to assume it. It was how do we get creative with making that work? So we did that, and a tremendous amount of perseverance. It was, about 8 months from original engagement to finally getting this thing closed. And just, again, I think some more gray hair in that process. But it was a great one. Enjoyed working with them and hope to do it again. So, thank you.
Ryan, any hair is good hair. It's my pleasure to introduce Andy Edmonds, CCIM. Andy is managing partner at NAI Cascade Commercial Real Estate in Bend. Ms. Edmonds provides comprehensive advisory services for commercial real estate investment firms and high net worth investors as their single point of contact. Andy developed her deep knowledge of the capital markets, first as a stockbroker with Shearson Lehman Hutton, now Morgan Stanley, and later with Piper Jaffray, now UBS. So why do they call real estate an alternative investment instead of a real investment? I call real estate a real investment. The other stuff's the funny stuff. Education. Miss Edmonds has graduated the University of Oregon. Go Ducks. Earning a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Finance with a minor in Accounting and Real Estate. Annie served as CCIM as our president in this region, and as first regional vice president serves on multiple national committees. Andy, the mic is yours.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Sitting here listening to all the presentations that just occurred and thinking I should just keep this really short because there's some really amazing deals that have occurred. And all my highlights just went away that I did on this. All right, let's start at the top. I facilitated the purchase of industrial or mixed-use park called Leeds Park in Charleston, South Carolina, which I know I'm in Oregon, little old Bend, Oregon. The buyer was in New York, an investment firm in New York. The seller was an investment firm in LA. So we pretty much covered the country on this. It was flex space, just over 1 million square feet, approximately 72 acres. And it was also an off-market deal. Was able to track down the opportunity through a contact in Charleston, South Carolina, and we were told that the owner might be interested in selling because they had a note coming due in less than 12 months. And so we proceeded to try and reach out to make some contact with the owners, and actually ended up working through one of the investors that was involved with the property, who was in New Jersey. And but we're able to get some information, get the underwriting underway, and in June of 2017, we submitted an offer for $52 million. And kind of like Ryan, this is where the fun began, because we thought, oh, well, that wasn't so hard. So as we went through the due diligence process, we received reports back totaling approximately $7 million worth of surprises. These included a water treatment plant that required phase 2 environmental, a roof that was not only in poor condition, which we could see visually, but was actually improperly installed, and during the next hurricane in South Carolina would have probably been torn off. There were some sinkholes that were beginning. The cams had not been reconciled, and it appeared that the tenants had been overcharged by about $1.5 million. And there was 15,000 square feet of missing square footage after we layered back through the leases. And all but one of the leases did not allow for an increase in the property tax expense. So going back to that definition of triple net leases, we were lacking a little bit. The owners of the asset were clearly not, they purchased this in 2006, and they clearly were not engaged with the property. Going on their website, they had a lot of hospitality and multifamily and no other properties like this, and this property, in fact, wasn't even listed on their website. So clearly they were disengaged. There were a series of issues, but we kept kind of plodding through them and coming up with a way to get to them. But really where we hit the big brick wall was after we had negotiated those issues and got the price down to $46 million with everybody assigned to taking a certain amount of the challenges, we had one issue left to deal with, and that was the issue on the environmental and how the indemnification was going to occur. For the first time in all the discussions and everything that were going on, we actually got on a conference call with the CEO of the investment firm, whom we have never had any correspondence with. Had all been through the CFO at that point. And the CFO was also on this call, and what I can actually thought I phrased this pretty well when I filled out the application. So I said, and what I can only describe as one of the most shocking and borderline psychotic calls I have ever been on. The CEO essentially ranted and screamed how despicable it was that we were retrading, and seemed fully unaware that his firm was the one who countered with the $46 million. And so we all got off the call in our various areas and reconvened on another call, and the comment was just like WTF? I mean, what just happened? And, so we're going back and through and like, okay, what did we miss? In any case, we tried to go back, re-engaging the first person that we talked with to try and reconvene the conversations, knowing that the note comes due on November 9th and we're in September at this point. And we know that if our offer is at 46 and we had found out that they owe 38 million, there's some lenders in the room. Who's going to do that in a couple months? And yeah, so we thought, okay, we just need to everybody take a breath. We're going to get this figured out. So we get an email back after several that essentially says, and the sellers are willing to go meet personally in LA, et cetera. We just get literally one-line email, deal's dead. That's it. I'm like, okay, that hurts a little. But so the following week, I was scheduled to go to LA for a conference where the seller resides. And I talked to Howard, my client, and I said, want me to show up? And he's like, yeah. He said, you don't need to negotiate. Just go there and just say we want to reopen lines of communication. So I go to LA. I walk up to a building. I walk in the door. And they are on a 15, 18-story building with 11 consulates in the building, including Ireland and Great Britain and Syria, a few other interesting countries that seem to have a bit of security in their building. So I wasn't getting into that building, although I went up to the desk and I did say, hey, I'm here to meet with the person I was there to meet with. And so the guy called up and, I had to provide my driver's license and do a few other things. But anyway, they said he's not in the building. Okay, great. Well, what I noticed while I was standing there is that there's two banks of elevators, as often is the case. This one comes up from the parking garage, and this one goes up to the office suites. I know what he looks like. I'll just sit and wait. So I waited for a little while until the security guard came over and said, you have to go. I'm like, all right. Came back the next morning at 7:30. Thinking maybe I can catch him on his way in. The security guard recognized me, was very kind and patient, gave me 90 minutes, and I was, before I left previously, I'd left a note just saying that I was there, call me, et cetera. And I will say, leading up to the meeting, I actually did try and set a time to meet with him. I couldn't get through that. So, nonetheless, I wait, I leave another note, that's on a Friday. Monday, they get a call. They put the deal back together. $42 million deal from 46, from 52. And I'm thinking, like Ryan, we did it. Until on November 8th, we're due to close on the 9th, I get a call at 7:30 our time, so 10:30 my client's time, PM. And I'm like, that's not good. So I pick up the phone, and he's telling me that they cannot close because their new property management group that they hired had not supplied the contract for them. And so I called my dear friend Jimmy Black out of Greensboro, who owns a property management company, and I said, Jimmy, and he had actually met Howard once before. I said, well, first of all, I texted and called him for about a half hour. It's 10:30 at night his time, and couldn't get a hold of him. And I said, call me the minute you get email, text, everything. He had every message, right? Call me the minute you get this. I don't care what time it is. 4:30 in the morning, my phone rings. I get on the phone. I said, Jimmy, you met Howard once. You have to trust me on this. He's going to send you some paperwork. Sign it. Just sign it. I will make it good one way or the other. In fact, that's exactly what he did. And so they got closed. About 1 o'clock, I got the call. We're closed. We're funded. We're done. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to drink or just curl up in a ball and cry, but we got it done. And Jimmy has actually gotten a very big client out of the whole thing as well. So that's my story.
Great story. Nicely done, Andy. Finally, and certainly last but not least, Anita, would you like to come up here? Anita Reesberg, CCIM, Recognized by her peers for her service and professionalism, having successfully negotiated all types of real estate since 1987, much of Anita's brokerage practice has been centered on multifamily investment property acquisitions, dispositions, serving local, regional, national clients. Projects include valuations for attorneys, private equity groups, dispositions for banks, assemblages, development and redevelopment of existing properties. One of Anita's greatest strengths is her ability to prospect for off-market properties. Anita is a past president of this chapter, and she holds a bachelor's degree from Mankato State University in Western Oregon State in business. Anita.
Mankato sounds very lovely.
Yeah.
Mankato.
Mankato.
Minnesota, Mankato.
Well, I'm not from Minnesota, so here you go.
So this was an interesting transaction. I have a client that I've worked with over the years who called me in February and said, I've got a $30 million exchange coming up, go find me a deal. Here's where I want to be, this is what I need. And I'm like, awesome, I like marching orders. So I started working on the market that he was interested in pursuing, cold calling my brains out, reaching out to owners, underwriting a lot of deals. Some we wrote on, couldn't bridge the price gap. Others, like this one, we did succeed in getting it. The property, it was an out-of-state owner. He had a management team on site, very good friends with them. So I made a few phone calls to local property management firms and said, so what's the story with this property? And they said, oh my God, that property? I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good. They said, well, when tenants fail our credit and criminal background check, they go rent there. Yes. Okay, so so that was one of the issues. So highly full occupancy. Yeah, it was full occupancy. I had done a couple of tours to this market, boots on the ground, because I wanted to see the various assets that I had scared up. And when I pulled into this parking lot, it was probably late winter, so they had plowed, they put snow up, snow banks and everything, plowing the parking lot. And all the little kids had their little sleds, and they were sliding down these berms of snow into the parking lot. And this is right in front of the property manager's office. This is a leasing office. I'm like, this is gonna be great. So later to find out, there's stories about the property manager. She's an alcoholic. They're selling drugs on the property. There's other illicit activities going on. So it just, it got really juicy. But then we looked at the metrics. And so it's a sizable asset. It's clearly mismanaged. The rents were way below market. So out of market owner, he's not paying attention. He's good friends with the manager. So there's huge upside on it. So my client was very excited. We made an offer. We were, of course, you do the dance back and forth. Ultimately went under contract at his price, north of $18 million. He had a prepayment penalty that my buyer agreed to pay. My buyer agreed to pay half of the excise tax. Really bent over backwards to assist, to work with this owner. Now, I've never done this before, but a monetized installment sale is what the seller elected to do for his exit. So it allows you to take your equity out, get a loan, and then you have 30 years to figure out what you want to do with the proceeds. Interesting. I don't fully understand it. Some guy in Utah set it up. It was a seller's election. I said, great, you've got an exit, we're good. We needed multiple extensions. The buyer's earnest money had to go hard once he concluded his due diligence. With each extension, he had to kick up another $50,000 non-refundable. He wanted the deal. So in the end, after 120 days, with a bridge loan, we did successfully get it closed. The rents, this is a mix of 2s and 3s. So the rents on the 2 bedrooms were between $35 and $50 below market. And the rents on the 3 bedrooms were $60 to $75 below market. The repositioning of this property, just like within the first 18 months, once they get that finished, they'll add $3.5 million to the value. So, and they're putting legs back on a property that truly was, it was a mess. I mean, there was radon, which he agreed to deal with. And then by the time that we got to close, we were like 97, 98% occupied. The occupancy dropped to 75%. And I think what happened was word got out that the property was being sold, and all the bad actors, rats, started jumping off the ship, started self-eliminating, which was fine with us. I mean, they were going to go anyway. So in the end, it'll be a worthy asset in that market. It'll provide, safe and clean housing for the population in that community. So that's the deal. Here in the Northwest. Yeah, and I had to, I didn't make the cutoff, but there was a second asset that I had to put with that to flush out the exchange. So there was another, but that's another can of worms. I won't go there. So anyway, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nick, what instrument do you play? Guitar. Tom's guitar. Carson, what do you play? Perfect. Well, bass doesn't help with the drum roll for the winner, right? So that's what I'm concerned about. Carson, give us a little bit. Our transaction of the year winner for 2018 is Mr. Ryan Embry.
Good, I only shared half the stories, so no.
There you go,
Thank
sir.
you.
Hey, Jonathan, you want to grab a quick shot? Sure.
On three, gents. Get this nice and blown up nicely. 1, 2, and 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you. Want you to say a couple words?
Yeah. That's surprising. Those were amazing stories. Again, very proud to be a part of this chapter. I think that a lot of the skills that I've brought to transactions have been because of stuff I've learned in this room from a lot of people in this room. So thank you for letting this happen.
All right. Carson. Carson's going to introduce another recipient.
That's true. Well, while I'm proud that Ryan won, I'm even more proud to introduce the recipient of this next award. We give out a scholarship every year to members of our chapter who we believe in, we want to put some momentum behind, and we want them to work towards achieving that PIN and then put that PIN into use when you're doing business. And one of the main members of our group here is Mr. Robert Nelson, Bob Nelson here. He is the epitome of first you learn, then you earn, and then you give back. So whoever wins this award is part of his lineage, and you got to carry on the exemplary work that he's put in for our chapter. So, the winner of the Robert Nelson Endowment Scholarship is Jordan Fessler.
Thanks a lot. I'm very surprised. So thank you very much. I recently came over from a career change. I was in medical sales for 13 years. So I was looking at making a career change for almost 5 years. Moved up from San Francisco, moved to Portland, and I met Nick, and we became close friends, golfing buddies, and he had asked me to come over for almost a couple years, and I was somewhat reluctant, and then this opportunity came up for the commercial real estate, which really intrigued me, and it's been a really great move. It was really hard for me to make the decision. Being in a career for 13 years, I was fairly successful at, so I'm really grateful for the opportunity that Nick's provided for me. It's been super exciting. It's been really fun. I'm about 6 months in. CCIM has been really good support. I've learned a lot, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity, so thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
So I'm going to hand the mic over to Mark, and he'll wrap things up. But I just want to point something out. 3 of the 5 candidates are past presidents of this chapter. One of them is a past recipient from years past, and she's still submitting things, still active. And we've got the last one is in the pipeline to be president in the future. So I think that's testimony to this chapter, what it means to this community, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. So thank you for coming today, and thank you for helping celebrate these great transactions, this great group of people. Mark?
Thank you, David. Terrific job. A round of applause for David. I know that we've run a little bit long, but as I look around this room, this really is the core group that supports the CCIM chapter here in Oregon. Power partners, regular people who come to the CCIMs. This is more like a family than it is an association when I look around the room here. And I've gotten to know quite a few of you guys. I beg your pardon? Yeah. You're welcome, everybody. Okay, the gloves are off. Most of the people here know that, first, I don't know what I'm doing, and I just do whatever Diane and Karen, Andy, Kevin, the other past presidents tell me what to do. Okay? They told me I didn't need to say a few words up here today, that they didn't prepare, so I prepared them myself. The first thing I want to, I guess, acknowledge is that I'm never going to submit an application for Transaction of the Year, because the ones that we just heard about are very sophisticated. I'm not sure that I would have the capacity to be able to do some of those deals. But the thing that I'm really afraid of is the fact that they are going to dig into your background. They're going to find out what you really did. And if anybody were to do that, especially if you go to Southern California, I think you're going to find out that it's just going to say, Mark Ilsley, full of crap. That's it. So I'm not going to apply for any of those awards. One thing that I did recognize when Barbara was up here talking is that Barbara, who went to the University of Alabama, and myself, who went to the University of Southern California, Trojans, we have more in common than just trying to bribe families to bring their players to come play for our university. I'm giving you a chance to deny it because that's just the way it is. It's been that way for 50 years. You guys are catching up, you Duck fans. Good for you. You are. It's the Beavers that are over here acknowledging that. That's for sure. But they wanted me to say something significant here for some reason, so I thought I would lead with this. There are 196 days until the first day of summer. What? Okay, I'll say something more than that. I've been in commercial real estate since 1977. I remember the first office I was in, the copy machine from IBM caught fire. Technology, practices, et cetera, have changed so much in the last 40-plus years. Barbara and some others, especially that guy over there. Is he asleep? Bobby, you asleep? No. No, he's working technology. He's working his phone. Look at that. A lot of things have changed in our industry, and the one thing that really never has changed in our business is that you need to build trust with your clients, and you need to help them solve problems. CCIM has helped me to be able to do that, not only through technology education, but in the network that I've been able to build, first Southern California and then here. A lot of the power partners that are in this room are experts in their field, and they are those people who can help us solve problems for our clients. Again, this is like a family. Barbara, talked about the CCIM vision that is coming, and working closer with that, I think what we're going to try to do as a chapter for the next few years is work with fellow associations like SOAR, like NAOP, like IRM, CREW, et cetera. Instead of being considered in the industry as competitors in these associations, we all have different influences, we all have different nuances, and what I think we're going to try to do as an organization is reach out and work with all these groups to try to bring up the level of professionalism for the entire CRE or commercial real estate industry. And so that's what I think our initiative is going to be for 2019 is reach out to those, maybe share with some of those leaderships in those groups is, here's where our education is kind of leaning. Where are you guys leaning? Where can we basically elevate everybody to make all of them better? And I think we're going to need to do that. I've been through 4 corrections in my career. It feels like to me that we are reaching the top of the value range for commercial real estate. And I think this might be a pivotal year because there might be some influences not only with interest rates, but also legislative changes, national and regional, statewide. I'm hearing from some resources that capital is now, it's been coming onshore, but there may be some major capital shifts with capital moving offshore. And international economies, if you read the news, if you really understand kind of what's going on in Europe and Japan and even Asia, I'm not so sure that we haven't hit the ceiling as far as the, some of those regional economies are coming. And all of those may have a strong influence on what's going to happen in the commercial real estate industry in the next year or two. So all of us as family members, we need to kind of put, I think, our ears out there, network with everybody that we can, internally and externally to our region, and learn from each other and work in this group to help our clients be better prepared for some of those changes that might come. So I hope everybody has a great year in 2019. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next year. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.